In the early 2010s, I came home with a game called Persona 4 Golden. I was excited to play an RPG with intriguing characters, fun storylines, combat, adventure, mystery, fishing. It had it all. It had motor scooters, lovely audience. But there was something that really stuck out to me when I first played this game. So in a nutshell, there was a character that, despite being assigned female at birth, presented masculine and wore the boys' uniform at school. And when I saw that for the first time, a simple thought came to mind. Wait, you can do that? So for me as a trans person growing up, I was kind of shocked to discover that, yeah, you can just do that. However, this is a video about a character that may not be canonically trans. That is true. However, through various aspects of their story, Naoto Shirogane has resonated with trans people through a very popular trans headcanon. So understand that this video is more about why the headcanon is so popular rather than why it's canonical, okay? I'm not arguing why a fictional character is trans or not. It's unproductive. Instead, let's look at how this character presents themselves and is written in a way that resonates with the trans community. Let's give this mystery our best attempt. You may be wondering, A, what's a Persona 4? You might have seen Persona 5, however this is Persona 4, the one before it. This lovely audience was my favorite game on the Vita growing up. And in this game, you play as a protagonist that enters a tiny country town, and you are tasked with solving a murder mystery by jumping into a TV. I'm not kidding. You jump into the TV and you fight shadows, a representation of yourself, a part of yourself that you want to hide from other people, something that you're ashamed of. I wonder how this would resonate with the queer community. So in various parts of the game, there are various characters that get thrown into the TV unwillingly, and it's your job to go in there and save them from the threat that is the shadows. So due to the police being unaware of the JRPG world inside of a TV, Naoto has been assigned to help the police. However, Naoto's mystery solving intertwines with your character and the party's mystery solving too. One thing leads to another, and Naoto ends up trapped inside the TV world, and it's up to you to rescue them. When you're shown Naoto for the first time, Naoto gets he/him pronouns throughout, and in the Japanese version too is gendered as masculine. Heck, Naoto is referred to as the detective prince on television. And Naoto seems okay with that, just putting that out there. But Naoto is thrown in the TV, and the party has to save them. Now, as I alluded to, the characters have their inner desires reflected from these shadows, representations of things they're scared to show others. For example, we have Yukiko, who feels trapped in her own family inn and feels pressured to continue the family legacy. So they present her shadow as a princess in a castle that is trapped. And then once the shadow boss form gets revealed, it is literally a bird in a cage. That's pretty literal, I won't lie. In addition, we also have Kanji. Kanji is presented to possibly like men, and is presented to be a hyper flamboyant gay man stereotype in a gay sauna, looking to score some hot studs. So as you can see, these shadows are pretty literal with what they're going for. Now, you may be wondering, lovely audience, what is Naoto's boss fight? What else would Naoto's shadow be? It's a cyborg surgeon here to perform a gender-altering operation. Cause what else would it be? Is it too late to give them a blowhigh? Now, that's not all. Before the shadow turns into its big boss form, it has the smaller form. In this case, Naoto's shadow is portrayed as a scared kid that feels looked down upon by those around them. An interesting aspect of Naoto's character outside of gender is that they want to be a brave detective like the heroes that they read about and saw on TV. And the family legacy. Naoto wants to be respected as a super serious detective. However, due to, unfortunately, expectations of women, Naoto feels they can't be the image of the brave detective that they want to be. Now, often this is interpreted, and the game's official explanation is that Naoto feels the need to present Masc to be respected, right? And ultimately learns that they don't have to present a specific way to be a cool detective. And I will mention, presents Masc for basically the rest of the game. Just putting that out there. So, I understand that most people, this is the reason the trans headcanon gets really knocked down a lot in online discussion. Because it quote-unquote undermines the character. However, I wish to give a bit of a counter-argument to that. Not necessarily to disprove anything or prove anything, but rather to explain why the headcanon exists. You see, unfortunately, workplace discrimination and being infantized by men, trans men experience that too. Now, me as a trans woman, it's not something I've ever directly experienced, however I've seen it happen. Oftentimes, trans men will transition and not be taken seriously. Unfortunately, society still decides to apply misogyny onto trans men, as they're not being seen as their true selves. And even when they are kind of accepted, they're kind of accepted as like their own thing and like get complimented like for being cute and like not being stereotypically manly. This infantization can be a bit distressing and kind of uncomfortable for a lot of trans men who just want to be seen as men. And there's all types of presentations of man, right? And trans men should not feel restricted whether they have to present as a femboy or a manly man with big giant muscles or something. Either way, trans men are men, and unfortunately, there's so many instances where trans men get looked down upon, given misogynistic remarks despite identifying as men, and ultimately get treated like a child for no good reason. I think this is a big reason Naoto resonated with trans men in particular. Like, whether Naoto's trans or not, doesn't matter, fictional character. This is why it resonated, I think. That's the impression I get when I read about Naoto on the internet. I think, like, Naoto wanting to be taken seriously is a very common feeling. And I think anyone can understand and relate to just wanting to be seen for who you are and be taken seriously. Ultimately, that makes Naoto very relatable, whether you're trans or not. And I think that's why a lot of cis people will fight down the trans headcanon so heavily, because they feel it contradicts the part of the character they relate to. Wanting to be taken seriously, not wanting to be talked down upon by those around them. I just wish to say that both can exist. However, it's okay if you headcanon one way or you see the canon way. It's fine. It's fine. However, understand that Naoto wanting to be taken more seriously doesn't undermine if Naoto wanted to be a man. So what happens when you strike down the JRPG boss with the power of friendship? Well, Naoto, it's their time to accept their shadow, which gains them the ability to summon Persona, which is the thing you fight with. So, with other instances of dungeons, the character has to accept that shadow in front of them is part of who they are. And that will make the shadow turn into the persona. That's how the game works. That's how we've presented the whole game. Now, it's worth stating that at no point in the game does Naoto say, gee, I want to be a woman, or gee, I want to be a man. Naoto doesn't say it explicitly. All Naoto says is that Naoto wanted to be like the cool men in the detective like books and stuff that they enjoyed. Okay? However, in this same scene when Naoto is like kind of explaining not wanting to be looked down upon, Yukiko just randomly goes, oh, you didn't actually want to be a boy, you wanted to be respected. And whether this is the truth or not, I think the way Yukiko says this really irked a lot of trans people. Because it's like, I don't think we should talk for other people. This video is no exception. Again, fictional character. So Persona 4, not Persona 3 or Persona 5, specifically Persona 4, has a really random, unique writing quirk where in some instances queer characters get backpedaled last second. And I'm going to make a specific argument. Let's look at a couple of characters that are also queer-coded. I'm going to start with Yosuke. Yosuke throughout the entire game makes some various remarks of feeling insecure around the concept of gayness. Various instances, Yosuke shows his discomfort and just doesn't want to have anything to do with it. But in some instances, blushes and feels a bit attracted to the protagonist. Now, if we didn't know what I'm about to tell you, most people would go, oh, well, he's not really gay. But the game was meant to make Yosuke gay. There's even English dub voice lines of Yosuke confessing his love for the protagonist. You can hear it right here.
I focused all my attention on the murders to avoid having to confront myself. So long as I don't try, nothing will change even if we catch the killer. Right now, I'm just plain old me. I never knew I had such heat inside. Don't make me say stuff like that. I like you. Don't go.
So it seems to be, at least until late development, Yosuke was intended to be bisexual. And I think that would have been really cool. Yosuke is a really fun character, and that'd be a fun way to let the player interact with Yosuke more. But for whatever reason, they didn't do this. Perhaps because this game came out in 2008, like I said. However, there's a couple of other characters that get backpedaled in a similar way. Last second, almost. So here's my theory. My theory is that Persona 4 was meant to be significantly more queer-coded. In some cases outright queer, but they changed it last second. That's the impression I get. Here's another example. Chie and Yukiko seem to be madly in love with each other. Heck, Yukiko's dungeon literally refers to Chie as her prince that will save her from the castle. And they seem a bit flirty throughout the game. Interesting note. Also, Kanji. Kanji is presented to be stereotypically flamboyant and gay in the Shadow world. However, right until when you defeat his boss, which by the way is a stereotypically flamboyant gay man holding the male gender symbol as dual-wielded bladed objects. Once you take down this shadow, and Kanji has to accept his shadow, right at the last second, he goes, "Oh yeah, it's not because I like guys, it's because I like feminine hobbies." Which is a fine characterization. Heck, they nail various parts of this in later parts of the story of Kanji being very masculine presenting but liking feminine hobbies, and that's super cool. I'm glad they did that. But that didn't mean he couldn't also be gay. And I really feel like that's what they're going for because the shadow was a gay sono. If the concern was specifically being assumed for feminine hobbies, why isn't the dungeon like something to do with those hobbies like sewing? I don't know. Just one of those things, you know? So yes, in a nutshell, I get the impression that Persona 4 was intended to be more gay. If you look at various interviews from Katsuhiro, the director of the Persona series, he was asked around the development of Persona 5 if the Persona 5 protagonist could be gay. And his answer painted a bit of a picture. In his response, he simply said, "I don't see the protagonist as gay, so I didn't make him gay." Which is a bit weird because the protagonist is a self-insert. So I'll just make the potential theory that the Persona 4 writing team had a lot of either hidden or out queer people in the writing team, or people that just wanted to tell their stories and wasn't able to. So they just kind of wrote around it and kept the characters more or less the same. But despite that, a lot of the queer coding remains, right? So Persona 4, despite being extremely kind of controversial in some ways, a lot of queer people have resonated with the game strongly because it feels like a queer found family just chilling. There's parts I take issue with where if you want to date Naoto, the way you do that is more or less peer pressure them to present feminine, increase the pitch of their voice. And in one case, Naoto in the hallway is like, I don't really want you to walk me home. I don't need that. I don't need you to walk me home. And the correct response to date them or hang out with them is, I'll walk you anyway. So I feel like, unfortunately, despite Naoto's story being about being able to be themselves, either way, whether you see it from a cis or trans angle, the protagonist kind of has to enforce feminine gender roles onto them in order to date them or hang out with them more. I always found that a weird angle. I also found it weird that the game makes, at least on multiple instances, an emphasis on Naoto having giant boobs and being obviously uncomfortable with these and not wanting to show them, but the game just keeps peer pressuring them to do so. So, however you see it, Persona 4 Golden, intentional or not, resonates a lot with the queer community, and for that reason especially is why I think Naoto Shirogane has meant so much to trans people throughout the gaming community. I mean, how many trans men are there in video games other than Tell Me Why? Like, and this happened like a decade before that game came out. The lack of trans men in games is Ultimately, I hope more trans men characters end up in video games and various stories of all sorts of mediums. I think we're starting to see more trans women in media, but ultimately, if you think that trans women in media are limited, trans men even more so. So I think the scarcity of this type of representation maybe is why we've clinged so much to Naoto. And whether it's canon or not, and it's probably not. Actually, it's most definitely not. Either way, the game meant a lot to me and many others, and that's all it has to be. Now, with Persona 6 eventually coming out, I'd like to hope that game allows your characters to be gay. That'd be really cool. If it had a trans character, even better, but I don't think that's happening, but hey, who knows. I guess that's what most people would feel like about a game released so long ago. Also, final thing I want to highlight before this video closes out. You might have noticed in some bits of footage, there was a female protagonist in Persona 4. That's a mod that I was using for my own playthrough. In the description, I'll include mods that let you play as a female protagonist and a mod that changes the dialogue for you to be gendered with she, her. I find this mod was incredible, both of them. I've really enjoyed playing the game again, that as myself in a way. I felt that was really affirming and a great way to revisit such a big, important game in my own transition and many other people's. So if you happen to want to play as a girl in Persona 4, feel free to check those mods out. And tell these mod makers they did an amazing job. Especially the person that did the text editing. I feel like they did amazing edits to make the story make sense. And I think I really appreciated that for my playthrough. So this person, this modder, thank you so much. You made Persona 4 so fun to reintroduce myself to. So thank you for making this mod. You did an amazing job. I love the text edits. You managed to make so much of the game's work and feel like it was always part of the game. With that said, I shall depart. And if you want to see more weekly trans content, feel free to subscribe as we do these often. If you want to see more trans representation videos specifically, let me know. The Mizuki video did pretty well, and this one will probably do okay. So we'll see how we go. I might do more. In the meantime though, stay hydrated and know that you are valid.